Hey guys, welcome to another Coding Santa video. Today we'll be going over a practice problem, which is different than the previous videos we had. This problem will include concepts that we've learned in previous lessons, and you will incorporate them into one program. The problem and the solution are both linked in the description, and you can reference them. In this video, I'll be going over the solution and writing it live. Let's start with the problem. Right here, the problem is on this screen by Coding Santa 2021. This is practice problem 1, Teacher James students. And the topics included are printing, variables, math problems, and input and output. At Ford Elementary School, Teacher James teaches 5th grade math. His class is an unknown number of students, all of them present at today's class. Mr. James recently assigned a group project and must split the students into groups of 3. However, he needs help with creating the groups, as he is not sure if there will be perfect groups of 3. Given the number of students in the class, help Mr. James determine the number of full groups he can make and the remaining number of students that don't fit into a full group. And we must prompt the user to input the number of students by asking for input through printing, which you learned in previous videos. And the result should be outputted through printing as well. Examples are shown below. This is an example input and output. So the user should ask this question: how many students are in Mr. James' class? And then 17 is inputted. From the 17, the output is he can make 5 full groups and there are 2 remaining students. So as you can see, the groups of 3, 5 times 3 is 15. And so that's 15 students in full groups. So that's 3 full groups, and there's 2 remaining students, 17 minus 15. We can try again. How many students are in Mr. James' class? 30 students is inputted. He can make 10 full groups as 10 times 30 is 30 and 0 remaining students. Okay, so now that we know the problem, we could dive straight into coding the solution. So as you can see here, I'm in my IDE with problem1.java as the file. So as you know, since we're going to take input in this file, we must import java.util.scanner, as that's what we must do if we want to create a keyboard. Import java.util.scanner. From here, we can do public class problem1, which is the basic setup for writing code. Public static void main string args. And this is nothing new, this is just a basic setup. And then now let's go back here and let's see what we should print. How many students are in Mr. James's class? That's what we should first print. Okay, and let's do that. We want to, as it says here, we want to prompt the user to input the number of students by asking for input through printing. So let's print it out. System.out.print. And let's have quotes because it is a literal. How many students are in Mr. James's class? So now we're asking a question. And so let's print it out to see if we're asking the question. Yes, it says how many students are in Mr. James's class, which is what we wanted to print. Let's change this to println because we want the input to be on the next line. So now, before we actually do any .nextInt or stuff like that, we must create our scanner object. For me, I like to call my scanner object keyboard. So let's do this. As we learned in the previous video, scanner keyboard equals new scanner system.in. So now we're ready to start getting inputs. So let's do that. So we'll call the value of inputs input. Int input, as this should be type int because the number of students does not have a decimal and is a whole number. And we'll say keyboard, which is the name of our scanner, .nextInt, which is grabbing the next integer, which we will be inputting. Okay, now let's test to see if this is correct. Let's system.out.print the value of input. Let's make sure this is correct. So what I type here, and when I press enter, the exact thing should be outputted right after. Let's do that. 14, it gives 14. So as you can see, we grabbed the input correctly. Now let's move on. So now we have to calculate. What do we have to calculate? as it says here, the number of full groups he can make. So through basic math, we know that the number of full groups is just basically the number of times something can be divided. So let's say, and this will be just division. So let's create a new variable, int number of times, as this is just going to be the value we're going to print. And this equals to input divided by 3. So you may be wondering why I did that. So we know input is integer. 3 is also an integer. And we know integer by integer division always results in an integer. So we do not have to worry about the decimals. So this just gives the number of full groups, because the decimal is cut off, meaning a half group or 2/3 of a group will not be included. So this will give us int number of times. Next, we want to find, right here it says, the remaining number of students that don't fit into a full group. So this is basically the remainder. So we'll do another int, don't fit. And from this, we can do input modulus 3. Why is that? Because modulus 3 just gives the remainder. So we want to see of the total number of students put into 3 groups, what is the remainder? And so that would be the value of don't fit. So now we have the value of the 2 things we're going to print. Now it's just time for formatting. As you can see here, the 17, once it is inputted, the output should be on the next line, and it should say he can make how many number of full groups, and there are how many number of remaining students. So we want to do that. Now let's try that. System.out.print. We're going to do exactly what they do here, because everything that is not a number here, every word here is a literal, meaning we can use quotations, and they're not represented by a variable. He can make and so since 5, the number 5 is not constant, the number 10 is not constant, that's the value of variable number of times, we can do plus, no quotations because it's a variable, number of times, plus, we'll do this for now, and let's see what it does. This should print he can make, and then plus how many full groups he can make. Let's see if that's true. First, let's input something. Let's input 15. The answer should be 5. He can make 5, which is what we will get. Now let's continue. The second part, he can make full groups, and there are. And this is a literal. So let's type that in. Plus full groups, and there are. So this is another literal. And then now let's add the last part. 2 remaining students. So remaining students is a constant, but 2 is not. So we want to add don't fit, because that is the variable. And then plus the last constant, which is remaining students. This may be a bit long of a line, so I will cut it off around here, so that all of it can be seen. I will cut it off again here. So system.out.print he can make plus number of times plus full groups, and there are. So these 3's are constants, and then plus don't fit, which is the 2 and the 0, and then plus remaining students. Let's see what this does. This should print the correct output. Let's follow the input exactly. 17, it should print he can make 5 full groups and 2 remaining students. 17, he can make 5 full groups and there are 2 remaining students. Now let's try again. Let's try 30. It should be this output. He can make 10 full groups and 0 remaining students. 30. And that's exactly what it does. So as you can see here, with 17 lines, we can make an interactive code that takes input and outputs the things that we want. This is done by taking the input through scanner and keyboard, which is the scanner object that we made, and then calculating the number of times, which is through division, and then the number of times that it does not fit, which is just modulus, finding the remainder. And from that, we can system.out.print it and format it with constants and variables and get the correct